Hello, everyone. It's Saturday's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have all of you with us. Click the subscribe button. Let everybody know about what we're talking about. And for those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Nadeem, how's it going, sir?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Just running some errands. It's really hot in Houston. If you're somewhere up north, I know there's a lot of viewers up north. You don't want to come down to Texas.
Hey, so, I want to talk about something that, I personally feel sets us apart from a lot of other MSPs. And, one thing that, I found interesting is that when you talk to CEOs and the business leaders, you really advocate for thinking long term as far as your technology. One of those things is, having a budget, but then there's the other part of it, which we call the secret sauce, which is the VCIO and TAM role. And I don't think a lot of people know what that is. So talk about that.
Before we get into that, let me ask you this. When you're talking to an IT company, forget MSP for a minute, just an IT company, what is that IT company prone to say? The main thing that I hear is every IT company out there says, hey, man, we are proactive.
Yeah.
We have good people.
Yep.
So, and I think about it and I'm like, which IT company out there says, hey, man, we try to do our best, but we're not really proactive? Nobody says that, right? We try to hire good people, but, hey, sometimes the riffraff just gets in. I mean, who's going to say that, right?
Right.
So that's why when I'm talking to customers and prospects, the thing about proactiveness, I don't even touch on it. What I talk about is our process. So for example, when we onboard a customer, the first 3 months is the standardization process where we standardize the customer to our process. Once that customer gets to the standardization through the standard process, they notice that their ticket volumes all of a sudden drop, right? They shrink. And we're not talking about, little, a few numbers here and there. No, we're talking significant difference. Yep. We're talking around 50% drop in reactive ticket rates. This doesn't happen by magic. This happens because of our process and how over the last 25 years, we've learned to do certain things in a certain sequence on a cadence. Yeah. That's what really changes the game. And I'll give you a few examples of that. One of the things that we do is when a prospect is onboarded, and as we get to about 1.5 to 2 months into standardizing them, we schedule out TAM visits with them, right? So these are usually monthly on-site visits where we spend a day, usually it's a whole day, on-site going through our checklist and making sure that all these things in our checklist, does the customer comply with those things or they don't? And that's where the secret sauce is, that checklist, right? This will include things like, what state is their cabling in? One good example is, how old are their UPSs? People forget UPSs because you only look at them when the power's out and you need power. That's the only time you look at a UPS. And if you haven't been up on it, typically a new UPS will come with like a 2-year warranty. A battery for a UPS will come with a 1-year warranty. And usually at that 1-year mark, the battery is done. Somebody needs to check it and replace it. That's a consumable. A smart UPS normally will tell you, hey, my battery's going out. You don't have to do anything. It'll do a self-check. But a lot of UPSs, the self-check will not alert you unless you do a manual check. So unless somebody has a process around manually checking UPSs once a year, at least once a year, you're not going to know. That UPS battery might be dead and you don't even know, right? So these are the little things that we do on a cadence. That make and that's the TAM's job to do this, right? So that's every month this person's going on that, he's going through our checklist. Now, it's not the same checklist every time. the checklist, we have it broken down into categories. So it's different checklists that the person is going through. I'll give you an example. One day, or 1 month it might be infrastructure related. A second month it might be security related. Third month it might be policy related. Whatever that category for that month is, that assigned category, we want to schedule that for the entire year. And the reason why we schedule it for the entire year is there's two reasons. One is so that we know when the TAM is occupied and he has to be on site. But the second, more important one is the customer knows when we are going to be on site. And the third, which a lot of times people don't even think about, the third thing is our mindset. When we pre-schedule a meeting, like when we pre-schedule for the whole year, every month, we found that we are less prone to miss it. Now, we didn't always do this. We learned this over time because, in the past, when we didn't schedule for a whole year, a lot of times the TAM would be like, yeah, I was just there, a couple of days ago and I was working on so-and-so machine and they looked okay. They're okay, right? I'll skip this month. I'll do next month. And it's like they say, tomorrow never comes. It's just like that. Once you start to slip, it's done. So we noticed that if we pre-schedule it for the entire year, we make sure that we get these done, right? We've already reserved this time for this activity. And we need to do that. We do this for all of our TechRes program customers. The other thing that follows on the heels of the TAM is the VCIO. Without the TAM, the VCIO can't do much because the TAM does the checklist. The VCIO goes through the checklist, matches it up to business goals. Because the VCIO is the person who's a C-level executive, and he's sitting with the C-level executives at the customer. So he's very intimate with the customer. We want to match up what the TAM found with what the business goals are. How do we, find out what the gaps are? How do we fill those gaps, and how do we get to the business goals? So that's the VCIO, what the VCIO does. And the most important part of the VCIO job is, which you mentioned earlier, is budgeting, right? Now, if the TAM fails to do their job, and even if you had the best VCIO out there, the VCIO knows what the business goals are, he doesn't know what state the IT is in. He can't. He cannot identify the gaps if the TAM process is not in place. So all these things, they kind of work with each other in conjunction, and they kind of build up on each other. One of the questions that I know a lot of other MSPs are probably thinking about is, so how far out do you budget, right? So, and that's a good question. So we found that the sweet spot for us, and it might be different for other MSPs, for us, it's about 1.5 years. That whole, the scheduling, the budgeting, everything about 1.5 years. So now the customer has a good idea what their overall investment is going to be in IT. And that's what we are looking for, is that overall investment over the course of a year, 1.5 years. We want to minimize that cost. We're not worried about what you're doing on a monthly basis because that'll fluctuate too much. We're looking about that 1 year. And that's where we make a significant difference and how we save money for customers in our TechRes program.
So it's interesting because you would think that this is something that's being done widespread, from company to company, where they, budget it out. But from my conversations with you, that's not happening.
No. Yeah, that's not happening. When we engage with customers, one owner of a business, I remember I was sitting across from him, and we were starting our first VCIO meeting, and he says, Nadeem, I'm going to let you guys get started here. The COO and the CFO were in the meeting as well. So the owner, he didn't want to sit in that meeting, but he wanted to meet with me, and he let me know that, he said, Nadeem, compared to our previous MSP, you guys are a breath of fresh air. Thing is that customers start to see that we're not just fixing problems. In other words, we're not like plumbers where you have a leak in a faucet, you call them and they come and fix it. No, that's not it. We are more like auto engineers. We do proactive maintenance on a cadence, just like you would change oil in your vehicle, right? You change fluids every so often. The same way, we have our process where we do them every so often. And we got to go through this because, like that example of the UPS, let's say you change the battery, this year. Well, next year you better check it again. You got to do it. It's a repetitive thing. Yeah, it gets kind of boring sometimes, but that's the name of the game. That's how we make sure that these devices keep running and they keep running well. Same thing goes with switches. We want to make sure that when a switch is past its life, that we replace it. You won't believe, and this is like a switch is what's giving you the connectivity, and you won't believe that so many companies out there don't even think or look at a switch until they got to plug a cable into it. And then one day when it hits the fan, so to speak, that's the only time they go look at the switch, what's going on. That's not the right way to do it, because these enterprise switches, you can't just go to the store and pick up an enterprise switch. You got to order it, and you better hope it's not on back order, especially now after the pandemic hit us and all the inventory levels. So you better hope it's not on back order, because most of these high-end products are on back order. So now if you have a dead switch, what are you going to do? Without a switch, you'd have no connectivity. What are you going to do? Same thing goes with routers, right? Your routers, your firewalls, your switches, that's just the physical hardware. Think about the software. Simple thing, like you have an anti-malware on your machine. That anti-malware gets definition files, every night. What if for a week it fails? For whatever reason, it fails. Do you know? Would you know? How would you know that it failed? Now here's where a lot of MSPs fall into a trap, because they will set up an alert every time that anti-malware software gets an update, right? So they're getting these alerts every night for all their customers, all their machines. That's a lot of alerts. And pretty soon you're going to find out that the person who's monitoring is not going to pay attention to these alerts anymore. They happen every night. And if you're managing 1,000 nodes and you're getting all these alerts from all these nodes, if one node is missed, are you really going to know that one node is missing?
That's true.
That's the other thing. Part of our process, and we document all this, part of our process is how we set up these alerts. We don't want to get an alert if something is successful. We want an alert when something fails. And you have to think it through. How are you going to identify if something fails? Because if it failed, it cannot send you an alert. Right. So it's got to be an external system that needs to go in and check and then report back, right? So these are the things that we've kind of developed over the years. All these work together to make us more proactive. And sometimes, to MSPs and IT guys out there, it's like, oh yeah, that's boring stuff. Oh, it is boring, right? Because it's routine. So, but the thing is, at the end of the day, we save our customers so much money. Yeah. And like a lot of times we'll go in and we'll talk about our monthly fee versus somebody else, and a customer's like, well, hey, what, I'm paying half of what you guys want to charge me on a monthly basis. They're not looking at the overall cost in 10 years, what their cost is going to be. Because if you don't have these processes in place, you don't have a lot of costs. Your MSP, if they don't have all these recurring processes in place, they don't have a lot of costs. So they can come in at half the price because they're not doing a lot of the work. They're doing, I can guarantee you if the price is half, then they're doing less than half the work. Right?
The funny thing, when you say that, Nadeem, is that I very rarely, I try not to, just bring up the price, but there have been some instances when I've done that and we've discussed it, and oh no, yeah, my guy does all of what your guy is doing, and he does it for 60% less, and I'm in my head like, no, he absolutely isn't. But you don't want to argue. You're like, okay, you'll find out soon enough. But it's funny you mention that because I hear that quite a bit.
Sophisticated customers and prospects and business owners out there will identify with that. Our cost, what we charge, it's not just we just threw a coin, tossed it, and when it landed, we figured out, okay, if it's heads, it's going to be this much. If it's tails, it's going to be this much. That's not how we calculate our cost. We calculate our actual costs, right? What you pay an IT engineer, I'm going to pay them the same money that somebody else is going to pay them. The talent is the same, right? The talent pool is the same.
Yeah.
The technology is the same.
Yeah.
Everybody has access to the same technology.
For the most
Nobody
part.
came from, outside of this world. Nobody has access to extraterrestrial technology or anything like that. So all these variables are the same. And yet you're telling me somebody can come in at half the price doing the same stuff that somebody else is doing?
Yeah.
It's not possible. And when some of these business owners, when they identify that, they're like, they know that we are, going to be more than their outgoing MSP, and they're like, yes, but Nadeem, I want to go with you. And this is when the customer or the prospect basically starts to sell them to us, that they want to go with us because we are that world-class MSP. And that's what happens with a lot of other MSPs. They're going to be like, for example, you might have a printer. They're not going to monitor the printer. They're not looking at the printer until one day it fails. Now, when it fails, they're going to spend a few hours over there, and then if they fix it, great, or they find out what it is, or they might just say, okay, let's replace it. Now, the customer is spending money on a piece of hardware that they did not anticipate was going to fail. That is a much higher cost to the customer. The customer doesn't put that cost to an IT expense. The cost of that, and I'll give you an example. A law firm that needs to print a legal document cannot print, and because they could not print it, they could not file on time. Now everything is backlogged. That cost, you're not putting a value on that cost, right? You're not calculating that cost and putting it towards your IT. You're just taking it, it's just cost of doing business. No, that could have been avoided if your MSP was doing their job.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. That's how we are able to save customers so much money. And when you look at your overall, that's why most of our customers, when they have their goals, and because we are the CIOs, we understand what their goals are. We have to do our jobs, and we make sure that IT is geared to take them, to what their goals are. That's why our customers, far majority of our customers are so successful in business.
Yeah.
Like I know we've had customers where the owners had a goal of they're going to retire after so many years. Boom, done. They got out by PE or whatever, or some other company acquired them. There are some customers, well, quite a few customers who wanted to get bought out by a publicly held company and be a part of the publicly held company. Boom, done. They're there. There were other goals for customers where they had to go beyond 100 users in a certain amount of time. Done. Customers who wanted to open multiple offices in multiple states. Done.
Yep.
All these roles, they are part of a well-oiled machine.
Yep.
And if you take one component out, like if you're running a business and you take legal totally out, your business it might work for a while, but ultimately you're going to run into some issues. Or if you run a business and you take accounting totally out, you might run for a few months, but at the end of the day, it's going to hit the wall and nothing's going to work. Same thing with IT.
Yeah.
And people, people think that IT is like, either plumbing or fixing cars. I give an example of how car maintenance is similar to what we do in IT, but that's just a small part of it. IT is an integral part of business, right? And the only example I can give you is if you need heart surgery, are you going to go with the cheapest heart surgeon or the best?
Put my life
And that's it right there.
That's it.
Think about that next time. Right? And if somebody asks you, oh, but my current guy is half the price and he's doing all these things, it's like, hey, let me ask you, if you needed heart surgery and you needed to find a heart surgeon, would you go by the one that was half the price or the best?
Yeah. True.
Some people, they're going to understand that. They're the ones who we want to work with. They're the ones who we want to take to whatever their goals are, whether it's, acquisition in 10, 15 years, whatever it is. And those are the businesses that really flourish.
Yeah.
And we love working for those kind of businesses because those are the business leaders that understand the process is what really makes the business. So it's and any other IT or MSP or anybody who says, oh yeah, we're proactive and we hire the best people. I got news for them. Everybody does. Everybody has access to the same talent, the same people. The tool set is the same. Anybody can buy any tool they want. That's not the differentiator. The differentiator is the process.
Yeah.
So hopefully, that'll help people out, especially MSPs out there. And if you have questions, I know. So I'm going to say this. So actually, just a few days ago, I was talking to an MSP friend of mine, and he said, Nadeem, one of these days you're going to slip up, and I'm going to get your secret sauce. So, but I didn't tell him this, but our secret sauce is not just. Our checklist is like pages and pages. It's like, I think like over 900 and almost a little over 1,000 now, questions and answers and things that we have to touch. That's our secret sauce. So it's not like I can just slip up. And even if I give you one little piece out of it, like I gave you the example of a UPS, that's just one little piece. There's like more than 1,000 there. So if you have questions, besides giving out our secret sauce, we'll be happy to answer them. With that, I think we'll call it a close. And the thing is, yeah, we are not the cheapest MSP out there. And we don't say that we're the cheapest. We don't compete on price, because if that was the case, then we just keep dropping our price until there's nothing left, right? But what we do is we do give you the most for your buck. And our customers, on average, save a lot of money, and that's why they're still our customers. Most of our customers been our customers. I remember companies with us back from when we started 25 years ago, and then there's been companies where their goals were to get big really quick, and they did get really big, and they start hitting that 200 user mark, and we got to tell them, hey, man, you got to find your own IT people now. And we didn't have a problem with that. It's an awesome feeling to be a part of somebody else's dream. And that's what business is. It's somebody's dream. And when we help somebody else achieve their dream, that's a great feeling to have. And we don't mind telling customers, Mr. Customer, you're too big for us. We can't keep doing this anymore. Our process is not geared for 200 user companies. Might as well we be dedicated just to support you guys, right? With that, I think we'll close it. And it's there's a lot that goes on in the back end that normally people don't see and don't even think about. And that's the beauty of it. You should not have to think about it as a customer. Everything should just function like it's supposed to. Right? Yeah. It's like going to the doctor, right? If you don't need to go to the doctor, that's the best place to be at, right? That means you're good.
That means you're good, right? Yes.
So hopefully that'll help some people out in the IT industry, or some people who are thinking about getting into this industry. Work on your processes, the cadence, those kind of things. Those are in any business, that's what really differentiates you. People, technology, hardware, whiz bang stuff, fancy, shiny things. Everybody has access to that. But your process is always going to be your process. That's what's going to differentiate you.
Oh, it's really good.
So with that, everybody, have a great day. Mac, you have a good day, good weekend.
Yes, sir.
And hopefully nobody's AC has any issues over this weekend, because it is hot.
It is hot.
Have a good one, everybody.
Have a good one.